Before the noise of the world claims your attention and the rush of responsibility tries to name your day, I need you to slow down right here, right now, because this moment is not random, this interruption is not accidental, and these words are not ordinary motivation drifting past your ears. This is a divine summons cutting through distraction, reaching straight into the private place you don't show people, the place where you've been carrying questions, fatigue, and silent prayers you barely had the strength to finish. And I am telling you with holy urgency that heaven has marked this exact second to speak to you, because a cycle is closing and a shift you cannot manufacture, cannot manipulate, and cannot miss is already unfolding around your life. And if you brush this off like background noise, you will treat as common what was sent as sacred. Because this is not a gentle suggestion, this is a decisive call. Events in the unseen have been aligning with precision while you thought nothing was happening. While you wondered if your effort mattered, while you questioned whether you were overlooked, and all along a divine timetable has been advancing toward a turning point that will alter your direction in ways you didn't even know to ask for. And yes, there were voices that tried to reduce you, people who spoke about you in rooms you never entered, people who smiled in front of you and strategized behind you, people who underestimated your calling because they could only measure you by your current season and not by your divine assignment. They criticized your pace, they doubted your capacity, they quietly hoped you would stay small enough to stay convenient. But every whisper, every dismissal, every hidden attempt to block your path was seen in full clarity from heaven's perspective. Nothing escaped divine notice. Not the betrayal, not the tears you hid, not the nights you stared into the dark trying to understand why doors kept closing. And while they were forming opinions, God was forming positioning. While they were plotting exclusion, heaven was arranging placement. While they were deciding your limits, your appointed time was being prepared with exactness. Because the kingdom of God does not react late, it moves with intention, and your name has never been absent from the conversations of heaven. You were never lost in the crowd, never filed under forgotten. A verdict has already gone out over your life, and it does not match what circumstances suggested. This is the moment where the current shifts, and it begins in the spirit before it explodes into the natural. But you must quiet your inner chaos long enough to receive it, because divine direction cannot compete with constant worry. And the one who almost gave up yesterday, the one who smiled publicly but cried privately, the one who kept functioning while feeling internally exhausted, you are standing in a moment that was set in motion long before your pain ever began. So don't label this as coincidence. Don't scroll past destiny. What is being spoken now must sink deep into you without resistance. This is personal. This is intentional. And what is about to unfold will change everything, but only if you stay aware, only if you listen with more than your ears, only if you dare to trust again after disappointment tried to train you not to. Because for a while now, something has been moving in the unseen realm. You felt it without language for it. You've been waking at odd hours, sensing restlessness and expectation at the same time. Your body felt tired, but your spirit felt alert. You pulled back from noise. You needed space. You were searching for clarity while pretending strength for others. And you knew you weren't fully okay, even if you couldn't explain why. But your struggle was not punishment. It was preparation revealing itself in layers. Every no redirected you. Every closed door shielded you. Every delay arranged timing. You were held back from environments that would have drained your soul, protected from people who would have benefited from you before you were fully established. And yes, sorrow touched you, not because you deserved it, but because some attachments had to break for your freedom to rise. And now a divinely measured window is nearing completion, not counted by calendars, but by spiritual readiness. And when this phase closes, clarity will break through like light after a long storm. Direction will sharpen, and a decisive move will take place that no one predicted. But you must be spiritually awake. You must recognize this is orchestration, not randomness. You were chosen for this season not because you were flawless, but because your heart stayed soft when it could have hardened. Because faith flickered even when logic argued against it. Those who opposed you have already made their last attempt. Their words, their gossip, Their silent sabotage has been recorded. Every tear you cried alone was seen. Every time you wanted to retaliate but chose. Restraint was witnessed. Every moment you wanted to walk away but stayed faithful anyway. Echoed in eternity. And now, while some people believe they got away with dismissing you, while others think their version of the story is the final one, heaven is changing the narrative in a single holy instant. A release of power is coming that no human resistance can stop. Your reputation will be restored, your position elevated, your endurance publicly vindicated, and the favor landing on you will not stop with you. It will spill over into those connected to you. Even the hesitant ones will have to admit something supernatural is at work. Because this outcome cannot be credited to networking, luck, or human strategy. This is divine favor in motion, and what they tried to minimize in you, God never removed. They tried to silence you. Heaven amplified you. They mocked your quiet season, not knowing it was a season of deep rooting. They kept you out of places you thought you belonged, but a new space has already been prepared where your name isn't on a waiting list, but built into the foundation. Because what God authors cannot be erased by human opinion. What God blesses cannot be undone by hardship. You felt unseen, but you were under divine observation. They called your stillness weakness, but heaven called it strength. While you grieved privately, new doors were being built. And when the shift hits, it will not crawl. It will collide with your life suddenly, moving you from hidden to established, from struggle to impact, from overlooked to recognized. Not for ego, but for assignment. So understand this before it manifests. Your losses had purpose. Your separation had protection in it. The exits you mourned were shields you didn't see. God saw intentions behind smiles, saw danger disguised as opportunity, and stepped in not to harm others, but to preserve your calling. And now God is raising those who felt broken, remembering those who thought they were forgotten, empowering the ones no one bet on. And people will ask how this happened for you. And you will know it wasn't your resume. It was grace. Grace that carried you when support left. Grace that cleared the path before you arrived. Grace that guarded you in hardship and now brings you into light. And hear this clearly. You were never disowned by heaven, even when doubt clouded you, even when sadness weighed heavy, even when you questioned divine silence. Love never withdrew. Presence never left. Strength was supplied when your own ran out, because this moment was always coming. And now you are days, moments away from a shift so big you'll check twice to see if it's real. You've watched others move ahead while you waited, celebrated others while holding private grief. But your time has not been skipped. Your quiet faithfulness has been recorded. So don't let anxiety make you miss this. Don't let old mistakes talk louder than divine mercy. Perfection was never the requirement. Persistence was, and you gave it. That's why a new way is opening, and those who wrote you off will watch you walk into what they said you'd never have. The opposition you faced was proof of the weight you carry. Your light exposes what some prefer hidden. You weren't rejected for being wrong, but set apart for being real. So stop shrinking to fit rooms you've outgrown. Stop apologizing for the depth God placed in you. The hardship refined you, strengthened you for what's ahead, taught you peace independent of circumstances. And now you must move forward with confidence, not timidity. You've wept long enough, survived enough. It's time to step into opportunities like they were custom made for you, because they were. You owe no explanation to those absent in your dark nights. What's coming is too sacred for debate. Renewal is arriving like a sudden outpouring, and just as they prepare to dismiss you again, God will lift you higher. As they whisper, heaven will speak your name in places of influence, and this blessing will not come with hidden sorrow. You will enjoy it fully, and that stirring you feel, that internal shift, is not anxiety, it's alignment. A chapter closing, a new one opening where your identity is no longer tied to past errors, where withheld things are freely given, and though they tried to stain your name, divine intention speaks louder than accusation. What God establishes stands, what God protects cannot be displaced, and now restoration comes. Not just replacement, double for the waiting, double for the betrayal. double for the undervaluing. God is removing the old narrative and placing new authority in your hands, empowering you to build again, to dream again, to love again with wholeness. And those who doubted your survival will watch your rise, because what God does privately will be displayed publicly, and every sleepless night you endured with quiet trust is now producing visible fruit. So release the pain of the past. Stop blaming yourself for others' choices. That grief was guidance. Those removals were clarity. You are not forgotten, not late, not punished. You are positioned, and the next door will open without strain because heaven announced the time. Every false word spoken over you is being silenced, every accusation overturned, and a declaration stands over you now. Chosen, protected, favored, and when the turn happens, don't be shocked by who comes back curious. Don't waste energy explaining your elevation. You were protected, not denied. The quiet season was holy preparation. You stood through it, and now your story becomes impact. Your breakthrough a well for others, your testimony a light. So stand ready. More revelation, more power, more presence is coming. Walk forward in favor, covered in love, surrounded by peace, because heaven has spoken, the shift has begun, and your rising is no longer a possibility. It is a decree, and it is happening now. And because it is happening now, you cannot afford to step back into the smaller thinking that tried to keep you safe but also kept you confined. You cannot return to the mindset that says, maybe someday, when heaven has already declared, this is the time. Because the shift you prayed for is not approaching from a distance anymore. It is surrounding you, pressing against the walls of your old limitations, demanding that you expand to meet what God has already released. And I need you to understand the weight of this moment in your spirit, not as hype, not as emotional noise, but as divine timing colliding with your readiness. Because there were seasons when you wanted this level of breakthrough, but you did not yet have the inner strength to sustain it. Seasons when you asked for elevation, but still depended on the approval of people who would have collapsed under the pressure of your calling. Seasons when you begged for open doors, but still carried attachments that would have followed you into the next place and quietly sabotaged what God was trying to build. And in mercy, those doors stayed closed. Those opportunities dissolved. Those relationships shifted. And you thought you were losing when in reality, you were being lightened, refined, strengthened. And now you stand different. You think different. You recover faster. You see through deception quicker. You no longer chase what drains you. You no longer beg to be included where you are merely tolerated. And this internal transformation is the very evidence that the external shift can now be trusted to you, because God will never release a new level into hands that still cling to old chains. And you have been shedding even when it hurt, even when you didn't understand why certain comforts were removed, even when loneliness felt louder than faith. You were being restructured from the inside out, your identity being detached from roles, titles, and other people's opinions, and reattached to divine truth. And that process is what makes this moment stable instead of temporary, because what is coming to you now is not a short-lived emotional high. It is not a lucky break that disappears as fast as it appears. It is a repositioning, a redefinition, a divine recalibration of your life's trajectory. And when it manifests, you will realize that the waiting was not empty time, but construction time. Heaven building what you could not see, aligning people you have not met yet, arranging conversations you did not know were happening, preparing spaces that required your name on them long before you ever walked in. And while you question your progress, God was managing details beyond your awareness. Because divine orchestration rarely feels dramatic in the moment, it often feels like silence, like delay, like ordinary days repeating. But underneath that surface, heaven is moving pieces with precision. And now those hidden movements are converging into visible change. And you must not shrink when it happens. You must not talk yourself out of what you prayed yourself into. You must not say, I'm not ready, when God says you are prepared. Because readiness in the kingdom is not the absence of nerves. It is the presence of trust. And you have built that trust through every trial you survived, every disappointment you didn't let define you, every time you got back up without applause. In those moments formed a spiritual backbone that can now carry greater responsibility, greater influence, greater impact without breaking you. Because this next level is not only about blessing, it is about assignment. Not only about relief, but about reach. Your life becoming a living testimony that strengthens others who are still in the waiting rooms you just came out of. Your story becoming evidence that delay is not denial, that silence is not absence, that pain can be preparation. And as God lifts you, others will see hope for themselves. They will see that endurance is not wasted, that faith is not foolish, that staying when it's hard can lead to outcomes no shortcut could ever produce. And this is why the opposition around you intensified before the shift, because darkness always senses when light is about to break through in a new way. Resistance often increases right before release, and the pressure you felt was not proof you were off track. It was proof you were close to a breakthrough that threatened the narratives built around your limitation, close to a level of freedom that would break patterns not only in your life, but in the lives connected to you. And that is why discouragement hits so hard, why fatigue felt so deep, why quitting seemed reasonable. Because the enemy of your purpose wanted you to walk away right before the door opened, to surrender right before the turnaround. But you didn't. Even if barely, even if tired, even if unsure, you stayed. And that staying has power. That quiet decision to keep going when nothing seemed to be changing is one of the holiest acts of faith you can offer. And heaven honors that kind of endurance with acceleration, with restoration, with divine compensation that does not merely bring you back to where you were, but moves you beyond it. Because God does not just restore losses, He upgrades perspective, authority, and capacity through what you went through. And now when the new opportunities appear, you will handle them differently. You will not cling from fear of loss. You will steward from confidence in God's supply. You will not overextend to prove worth. You will operate from rest, from identity already secured. And that internal posture is what makes this season sustainable. Because blessing without inner stability becomes stress, but blessing flowing into a healed, grounded spirit becomes impact, becomes legacy, becomes something that outlives emotion and creates real change. And you are being moved into that kind of season. One where your success is not loud striving, but quiet authority. Not constant hustle, but aligned movement. Not chasing, but responding. And this will feel unfamiliar at first because you are used to pushing, used to forcing, used to surviving. But now you are learning to receive, to walk through doors that open without manipulation, to accept favor without guilt, to let God's goodness land without questioning whether you deserve it. Because grace by definition is not earned, it is given, and the very discomfort you feel with ease is evidence of how long you have lived in fight mode. And God is retraining your nervous system, your expectations, your internal dialogue to recognize that peace is not a trap, stability is not temporary, joy does not have to be followed by disaster. You are allowed to inhabit good seasons without waiting for them to collapse. Because this time the foundation is different. This time the blessing is built on obedience, growth, and divine timing, not on impulse or pressure. And that is why fear must not dictate your steps now. Because fear will try to make you hesitate, to overanalyze, to delay obedience until it feels perfectly safe. But this season requires faith-filled movement, not reckless, but responsive, sensitive to divine nudges, willing to say yes when the opportunity aligns with what God has already been stirring in you. And as you do, you will see a chain reaction of provision, confirmation, and open doors that no human could have synchronized. And you will look back and realize that even the detours made sense. Even the heartbreaks had purpose. Even the silence was strategic. And gratitude will replace confusion, worship will replace worry, and confidence in God's leadership will replace the old habit of second-guessing every step. Because you are not the same person who entered the wilderness. You are the person who came out refined, clearer, stronger. And that version of you is capable of carrying what is coming without losing yourself in it. And that matters because the goal was never just to give you more. It was to give you more without you losing your soul, your peace, your integrity. And that is the victory unfolding now. Not just external breakthrough, but internal wholeness, meeting external opportunity. And when those two align, acceleration happens, momentum builds. And what used to take years can begin to happen in months.